So welcome back, and today I'm chatting to Andrew Kojima, also known affectionately as Koj to pretty much anybody who knows him, I think. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'm excited to share your story. Now, we met, I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 4 years ago?
About 4 years ago. I think the growth hub was about 5, isn't it? And I was sort of in that first year, maybe towards the end of it.
Yeah. And I think in that time that we've known each other, we've had some weird and wonderful conversations along the way. But actually, we haven't ever really had a massive conversation about your career. So I'm excited to delve into the nitty-gritty of how your career's evolved and the big career change that you underwent a few years ago. Could you tell us what you were doing before you had your major career change?
Yeah, I came out of university age 21, 22, and went straight onto sort of the treadmill into the city, into finance. I went into an investment bank, and they had big bright lights and very attractive to graduates. I didn't do a particularly banking degree. I did classics, so Latin, Greek, history, all sorts of stuff. Fairly arts based, I suppose. But anyway, I did banking for about 3 to 4 years. I started at UBS and then was at Morgan Stanley for a year. And then I sort of moved out of banking, which was quite sort of deal driven, and into much less deal driven kind of work, which was investment research. And it was a bit more academic. The hours were much better, because the deals were necessarily out of hours, I suppose, or overnight, getting ready to announce. I'd often be working through the night with lawyers and people like that as a junior. But then when I went into research, it was very much sort of 8 till 6 kind of hours. I did that for about 10 years, and then this year was the 10-year anniversary of me leaving and 10-year anniversary of me being a chef. So I've had a 20-year life in work, 10 of which in finance, 10 of which in cooking.
Nice and even. I almost feel like there needs to be the next 10 years now, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you talk to me about what happened, what led to the big career change? How was your career going? What inspired the change?
Well, I think the career change had been brewing, because I remember when I was about 25, somebody gave me a book. It was a coffee table book. It was called something like Restaurant Design, and it had just like these beautiful pictures of really well designed restaurants, spaces that a 25-year-old, 30-year-old person with no kids and therefore a lot more money to spend on nice things. So when I was 25, and my friend had written in about this book, like, to Koj, you might need this in 15 years time. So I think I'd obviously been talking about having a restaurant at some point. Even before I went into banking, I'd read books about chefs and cooking, and I'd always had it in the back of my mind. So when I was in my late 20s, my habits began to change. My hobby became cooking. In my early 20s, I was going to bars, maybe going out for dinner. In my late 20s, it was more about having people over for dinner. And then, of course, that also coincided with the time of getting married, having children. And those external factors all made me think about what I was doing. And I guess I felt that I'd fallen into finance rather than actively chosen it. And when we were looking at moving out of London, one option was for me to sort of leave employment but sort of work as a consultant. Mm-hmm. But at that, I think that only made matters worse in a sense, because it gave me more time to cook, gave me more time to analyze the things that I wanted to do. That I literally made a list of things I wanted to do. It was like a mini, quite a bit early midlife crisis, basically.
And this was all while you're still employed, right?
This was all while I was still employed.
Okay.
And one of those midlife crises was go on MasterChef, basically, and that came from my friends. I started to watch it a bit more because I suddenly did a job where I could watch evening television. So anyway, by that stage, I had left permanent employment and was working on my as a sort of freelance person in finance, and that's when I applied to MasterChef.
Okay, and when you applied for MasterChef, was it with the intention of changing careers, or was it just like, well, let's just see what happens?
No, it wasn't with the intention of changing careers at that stage, but it was like I literally had a list, a notebook, and I had tick boxes and things I wanted to do, and one of them was start writing. I wrote a lot in my old job anyway. I researched, I wrote papers, I wrote investment research for people to act upon. And I wanted to use that skill, and I started a food blog. I wanted to learn butchery, so I went to a butcher's and did a bit of an apprenticeship there. There were all these things, and one of the bigger ones was go on MasterChef. And obviously, that felt a bit more unachievable because obviously so much of it's beyond your control. I mean, they have the year I applied, there were 24,000 applicants. There's no way you could ever hope to be sure that you're going to get on. And there must be loads of people that really want to get on and haven't managed to. So
what was it about you, do you think, that made them pick you out of 24,000 people?
I think they saw the genuineness of my passion. Like, I don't think I particularly fitted any stereotypes, I was a fairly average guy who went to a decent university and had a good corporate job. So whereas there were people with much more interesting careers, like there was Jay the bouncer, and people that could tell a few more stories about their work life probably, and that and more interesting backgrounds as well probably. They said to me at the time, like, we chuck out 20,000 applications. We pick them up. We can see they're written by people who are bored or not actually genuinely wanting to apply to MasterChef.
They just want to be on TV, or
maybe they just want to be on TV, or maybe they're just having a really bad Friday afternoon. Yeah. So it's a little bit of escapism, and it was escapism. It was escapism for a whole year because I applied in March, April. As I was working freelance by then, so I'd had to go through that process of finding somewhere to work, and I was in London at the stage, so I was working in. I joined the London Library, which is full of more like writers and authors and journalists, but I also went to places like the Wellcome Library, which was full of scientists and medical students, and then there was the British Library across the road, and I also joined SOAS, which School of Oriental and African Studies. I was doing a Japanese course there. So I had all these places around London that I worked in, and they were all really inspirational. And it was a time that my mind was open to change. And I remember applying for MasterChef when I sat in the library at SOAS. And I remember being called up for interview when I was in the library at Imperial College in Kensington, and having to go to find a quiet place where I could have a chat to them. But that process took from let's call it March, April. Over the spring and summer, there was like interviews, and then final casting was end of August, and then the actual filming was September, October, November, and then the edit was December, January, and then on air January, February, March. So it literally was a full year between applying and actually being able to start being a chef.
Like, how did you evolve as a person during that time? What's going on in Koj's mind? Because it's a huge transition, isn't it? Going from your corporate, I was going to say 9 to 5, although it sounds like it was almost 9 to 9 sometimes. But going from that to, suddenly in front of cameras and doing something completely different.
Well, again, the process through MasterChef, including the interviews and the casting, even the filming bit was the filming bit was different because suddenly you had cameras in your face, and you had to learn that as a skill about how to talk to camera or talk to the interviewees at least, and you had to, but I could never allow myself to think much further beyond that, because your goal in MasterChef is to survive week to week, right? And I met a lovely lady who was she was working in computers or IT, something like that, and she told me the week we started that she quit her job. But she went out that first round, and I've always wondered, like, whatever happened to her. Like, she didn't get far enough probably to use it as a springboard. I mean, maybe it was a moment maybe she's working as a chef somewhere and I don't know about it, but you know, I felt that was a risky thing to do that early in the process.
Sure.
And even once it was all finished and I knew where I'd come, I still had, you know, probably a 3 to 6 month process of working out what I was going to do, because it's not obvious that you're going to become a chef either. You know, chefs work probably as long or longer hours than junior bankers, but with a fraction of the pay, right? So, you know, if you're 32 or 33 as I was, and you've got 2 young kids, and you're working more hours for less money, it doesn't stack up. So, you know, I didn't let myself think about beyond that stage until I knew that I'd done well enough to then go and you know, start a new career in it.
Yeah. So speaking of springboards, obviously MasterChef did give you a springboard. How did you use it? What happened after the madness of MasterChef?
Well, I went to work in different restaurants to start with.
Did you suddenly start getting phone calls going, "Hey, come and work for me," or what happened?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, the weird thing is you get a lot of phone calls from stuff that you just didn't ever see it coming, and you didn't want to even give it like 2 minutes notice. Like I had a call from, I can't remember, something like one of the big pub chains about revamping their menus, and like, first of all, I have no passion about like mass produced pub food at all. I have no knowledge of the supply chain. I have no knowledge of like writing a menu that you know, appeals to you know, like 95% of the population. Just none. I've become a very specialized chef. So, you know, on the one hand, you're like, oh, cool, people are calling and people are emailing, and on the other hand, you actually have to. I think it's very different in like MasterChef or those sort of cooking reality shows. You really have to carve your own way. If you do one of the singing ones or the music ones, they put a load of money behind you. They give you music writers. You really, all you have to do is stand up and perform.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, for other reality shows, it's a bit more real. So I went through that process.
Yeah. What did you do after MasterChef?
Well, you can't do anything until it's been on air first for a start. So you've got sort of 2, 3, 4 months. I don't know, like really purgatory, basically, just waiting. I did things like I wrote to Jay Rayner, the Guardian food critic, about, you know, maybe being a food writer, because obviously my background was writing and research. And I spoke to loads of people. I thought, well, maybe I don't want to be a chef. Maybe I want to be a restaurateur, and it's, you know, it's different. But, you know, you have to understand the chef, because that's a very core part of it. But, you know, I had a friend who'd worked in, who's a lawyer, and he jumped out of that corporate world, and he set up a Mexican chain restaurant. Well, he started a Mexican restaurant, which became a chain. You know, I spoke to people like that. I spoke to a friend of mine who was a chef. I was at university with him. You know, I spoke to lots of different people about how their life was, and I suppose most of them were in my sort of age group, but I spoke to a few other people as well who sort of, you know, not at the end of their careers, but much further on, you know, in their 50s, let's say, to get as many different ideas. I've always been a big believer in, like, even if you go sit and talk with someone and you can immediately tell that's not for you, or if indeed that they're talking something that you just don't believe in or whatever, it's still an important input into the mix, you know. And then you're rarely going to make a decision overnight, but over those succession of nights and nights and nights and all these pieces of input, you will come to your consensus where you want to be. And in my case, that consensus came out to be a chef. But luckily for me, it wasn't the end of the road, because being a chef also allowed me to become a cookery teacher, which is, you know, a branch of chefing. But obviously, as a chef in a restaurant, you have to be able to teach other chefs your knowledge, but you can also do it as a profession itself and be a cookery teacher. And I've also, you know, written a book, so I've become a cookery author. So there's lots of things that have come out of being a chef, but I had to choose the initial path first.
Yeah. Well, I love that you had all these people to bounce ideas off and to have those conversations with, because, I do talk to a lot of people who try to make these decisions in isolation almost, or just by talking to one or two people. And I think isolation is a creativity killer. You end up just stewing over the same
100%.
thing, and having the same thought patterns about things. And
Totally.
I couldn't agree more with you that actually talking to lots of different people as well, not just one type of person, but lots of different people, it would just sparks little ideas, doesn't it, and plants little seeds that you can then choose to water or not.
Yeah.
I really love that. So obviously you had a lot of people around you that you could have those conversations with, which is brilliant. Who would you say was part of your really core support group?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, my wife. Like she had some very difficult discussions with me and with herself as well. Like she went, one day she went for a walk. We had an argument about me changing career, and she went for a walk. She went for a run, but she wasn't back after 4 hours. I was like, "What? Is she running a marathon?" Like actually, that run had turned into a very, very long walk.
Mm-hmm.
But once she was on board, then like she was the main person, like giving me the confidence to go through with it, telling me it was going to be okay, that that we could work together. Like she had an income, and obviously we had a very young baby at that stage, and so I felt, I suppose if I didn't have that, equally I wouldn't have had the I wouldn't have had the debt to children and other things going on. So I'd have been more free, if you like. But equally, in that situation, although I did have those things, I also had someone that could encourage me. And then there were like a friend of mine who's a chef. I mean, he was great. He brought me into his kitchen. I did, probably 3 months working in his kitchen. He then put me in touch with another chef that he worked with. I went and worked with him, learned a different skill set, different types of food. He was more seafood orientated. So, obviously as a junior chef, if you want to start age 16, it's probably going to take you 4, 5, 6 years to build up a decent set of skills that you can run your own kitchen. Yeah. And I did a crash course, with various different people, all within the year, and had a really good base of sort of knowledge in the kitchens.
So you were raring to go by that point.
Yeah, I was totally raring to go, and it was still in my mind to set up my own restaurant. But yeah, there were loads of people that helped me along the way, and I'm very grateful to them for helping me. And they're also, and I think the other thing, I'm very lucky to enjoy doing something that is very tangible and immediately obvious to people. Like when I was a banker, my wife, people would ask my wife, "What does your husband do or your boyfriend do?" And she literally couldn't tell you that she's a doctor, right? And everyone knows what a doctor is, but maybe lots of people don't know what the difference between a dermatologist and an ophthalmologist is, perhaps. Well, for her, like banking, accountancy, law, all those sort of like city jobs are all one and the same. Like she didn't know. Like at least when you say I'm a chef, people know what you do, and they go, "Oh," and then they start telling you about, "Oh, I went for a restaurant." So I do a job, and my interest is something that is immediately emotionally connected to people. And so when I was looking for people to talk to, it was really easy because everyone knows someone who's done something in food, or because they remember it, but they don't remember someone who set up a little, I don't know, I'm gonna upset some of your people that want to set up a tech fund or something. Like, people don't really think of that. They remember the person that sets up a restaurant, don't they?
So true. So true. And I guess the fact that you were MasterChef is always going to be a conversation starter as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, yes, I can't deny MasterChef helped enormously as well. It's a big brand. It was watched, I think, ours was watched by 10 million people on BBC One at 9 o'clock. It's great. So obviously that's a conversation starter. It's a door opener, and it gives you like a big market that you can sort of access immediately.
What do you think would have happened if you hadn't somehow got past these 24,000 people who applied and actually got on MasterChef, what do you reckon your life would look like now?
I think that I probably have gone into like maybe something a bit lower risk, like food writing. I say lower risk because, as I say, working in a kitchen is, fairly low pay. Food writing is not well paid, but it's equally it's lower risk in the sense that you can fit it around a family life a lot easier. And obviously, I went on and took the risk of opening a restaurant, so that there is a risk, like just like any business. But I suspect, yeah, I'd probably taken something that was a bit more obviously compatible with family life and moving out of London. I mean, there's one lady who was a master chef who went out sort of middle of the rounds, and I always looked at her and she did amazingly. Like, probably people who watch MasterChef wouldn't necessarily remembered her because she went out quite early, but she went on. She was like so head down. She went on and won a Michelin star for one of the restaurants she ended up working for. Now I think she was younger than me, so she's like mid-20s, no children. So she was able to commit to that, and I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. But I like to think that I would have found a way into food somehow, whether that was maybe going to work as at a corporate level in restaurants or restaurant groups, and then sort of maybe going off and doing my own thing at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd had a taste of working on my own in those. It was about 18 months, 2 years when I was on MasterChef and I was doing finance, but I was doing it on my own. So I'd had that taste of being sort of self-employed and not having bosses to answer to effectively. Mm-hmm. And I like that lifestyle. So here I am 10 years later, and sure enough, like in COVID, there was me thinking, God, should I stayed in corporate life? I'd have a much safer job possibly, but equally I'm like, I'm 10 years out of that sort of system, and so to go back into corporate life would be very difficult for me. So I have to keep going as I go, like being a self-employed person and finding my own avenues effectively.
Yeah. And gosh, I mean, you found your own avenues even in the relatively short time that I've known you. You've done a lot. You've become an author, you had a restaurant, you've done private chefing, you've done a pop-up restaurant, you've done all sorts. So looking from the outside, looking into your career, I would say you've had a really successful career. Does it feel like that to you?
Yeah, well, thank you for sort of like highlighting and compressing it all together, because when you compress it all together, it does feel like, okay, cool, that's good. I've done those things, and that's great. But obviously, when you're doing it, sometimes you feel impatient. And so when I first moved, I moved out to the Cotswolds in 2013, and it wasn't until 2015 that I started doing pop-ups, and I started in Cirencester, and I started sort of actively looking for a restaurant in 2016. And do you know what? Those 3 years felt like a long, long time. And maybe it was a function of various things. Maybe it was, we were moving house and there was refurbishing to do, and the children were very young, and so they were growing up very quickly. So maybe like those 2 or 3 years felt like, I don't know. To me, they felt like 4 or 5, and it felt like I wasn't progressing fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I got my first review, which ironically was by Jay Rayner. He made a comment about Andrew Kojima played the long game or whatever. I was like, yeah, I suppose I did. It did take me a little while, but I got there eventually. And now that you thank you very much, compress 10 years into like 20 seconds. Okay, cool. I did do quite a lot, and maybe 2 or 3 years to think about a restaurant and do a job. I was doing private chef work at the same time. It wasn't like no one was paying me a salary to write a business plan. That had to be done out, in my own time. So, it had to take 2 or 3 years to do that. And it took me a lot longer than I thought it would to write a book, because for a start, it took me 18 months of getting a restaurant open. Like, I couldn't start writing a book the day I opened a restaurant. That's not how it works. Like, you got to get it going. And then, the process after that was another year, because again, like, I wasn't sitting down for 6-7 hours a day writing a book. I was cramming in like 2 hours at the end of service, 11 to 1 in the morning. So yeah, it's nice when you put it all together quickly, but sometimes you do have to, take your time. And I've always taken my time about things, because I want to get them. I don't know. I feel like I want to get them right first time. You never will. And I learned that big lesson with a restaurant. You can never get it right first time. I mean, maybe if you've done it like 5 times for various different people, and by that stage. But that's 20 years career in itself, right? So
yeah. No, I mean, definitely from the outside looking in, I love watching your career. It's really exciting. There's always something new on the horizon for you. What's your definition of success nowadays?
Well, I think for me, it's being happy in what you do and conveying that to your family effectively. Now, part of that inevitably comes down to money, like it always does. So having enough money to to fund the lifestyle that you like, but also, for me, I found that I sit back and I think that I don't know. I suppose it feels like I floundered, and it took me a while to get into cooking, but I want to make sure that my children know that it's okay to do whatever you want to do as long as you love it. And there's obviously there've been really challenging moments, whether it's been opening a restaurant or closing it in COVID or whatever. But there's never been a moment in my career in 10 years as a chef that I haven't loved doing the actual cooking, and I haven't loved or not just the cooking, but having a restaurant. I've never ever woken up and go, I don't want to go to work today. Yeah. And that's really powerful for me. So that in itself, if you can do that with any job, that's successful in its own right. Yeah. And I went through 10 years of other jobs where it's fair to say I didn't have every day. I wasn't, there were days that I was like, oh, I'm a little bit ill. I've got man flu. Better stay at home because and these were the days that you sneezed and people said go home. They really would be saying like come to work. You've only got a little sniffle.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think being waking up every morning and going, yes, another day of work, awesome. What could be better than that?
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening to this who's listening for inspiration and they're thinking about changing careers and they're umming and ahhing about whether they should go ahead or not, what would your advice be to them?
My advice would be, in this case, in this one instance in your life, listen to your hearts, right? If you get one shot at this, and I know I see it with my kids at the moment, like they're at this lovely age where they're doing loads of different stuff. They're doing loads of different sports. I'm jealous of them. I want to be doing like 4 hours hockey and 6 hours cricket a week, whatever. But they're also they're doing different languages. They're doing sciences. They're doing all these different things. And they're doing that in this like well-established societal thing that we've devised called education. And then there's sort of some expectation that you narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow. And I just don't really think that you have to do that at all. Like, their education is, let's call it 10 years primary, 10 years secondary, a little bit of tertiary, and then you have a career. And my father's Japanese, and Japan is very culturally very about doing a career for 40, 50 years, like, and that's one thing I haven't inherited. Like I totally want to do what takes, and your interest changes as well as you grow older, right? Yeah. Either that's through your kids or just like, I don't know, maybe it's because you suddenly buy a house that's got a garden, so you become interested in gardening, or you have a shock and you realize that you're really unfit compared to what you were when you're 20, and you start getting back into sport or whatever it is. Yeah. So you've got to allow yourself the ability to change career that suits what you want to do overall in your life, as long as you can pay the bills and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure is a thing that comes up in all of your podcasts.
Yes, well, money makes the world go round, doesn't it?
Apparently, yeah.
But some people change careers and they earn more money and they're happier in what they're doing as well.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I do come across a lot of people who have quite limiting beliefs around their career, and they can only earn the sort of money that they want to earn doing a job that makes them miserable, quite frankly. And
and I think that if you have any concerns in the short term about money, I think you've got to look. You will make success of it, and you will have even better and bolder ideas 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, with the benefit of experience and the benefit of experience is it brings confidence. Yeah. And so you're right. You probably will. You may take a dip initially, but I think you will go through it and end up earning a very decent amount for something that you love.
Yeah. And what could be better than that?
Not much.
No. What have you learned about yourself through this process?
I've learned about myself that I'm still maturing. Like, I wasn't mature enough age 18 to nail myself down to one like very narrow degree. My wife is very lucky. She did sciences at A-level, she did medicine at university, and she's still a doctor 20 years down the line, and she loves what she does. Like, she has challenging days, especially because she works at the NHS and it's very challenging at the moment. But for me, I wasn't mature enough at 18 to like focus that much quickly. But what I fundamentally learned about myself is to do anything well, I've got to choose it myself. I can't be forced into it by social constructs, by educational, conventions, and let alone by parental pressure or my wife's pressure from my wife to do a certain thing. I've got to have agency. That's what I've learned about myself.
Love that. Thanks so much for sharing, and thank you so much for your time. I know that you're a busy man with lots of exciting things going on, so I really appreciate the time that you've given me today, and I'll see you soon in person, hopefully.
Thanks, Yeshua, it's been a pleasure.
If you know someone who would enjoy this podcast, do share it with them and subscribe now so you never miss an episode.